As people join, welcome. Like to welcome you all to this webinar that the Regenerative Organic Alliance is hosting as part of our Regenerative Organic Learning Center webinar series that's in conjunction with field days and virtual field days that we're doing with 5 farms across the country. And these farms are amazing bioregional hubs of inspiration and action. They're farms that have put these principles, these ethics, and this vision into place and have been doing it for quite some time. And so they've been chosen to present and to be these hubs of learning and resources for all of us to be inspired by. So we're very excited about today's webinar. As you're joining, if you could please introduce yourself in the chat, where you're coming from, and your interest or connection to regenerative organic agriculture. We have some guidelines up here on the page as far as what's happening. It does say it's going to be an hour long. We allocated a little more time today. It's technically an hour and a half. If you do need to log out after an hour, that's totally fine. We added that extra time for roundtable discussion and for some Q&A. So that will be the addition. There is some, it will be recorded and available later. And you can have your video on and off. You can chat to other people in the room. You can add comments as we go. Anything and all is welcome. If you have any questions during it, you can either write them down and ask them at the end, or if you want to put them in the chat, that would be awesome. And then when we get to that, we can, even if you've tuned out, we can address some of those questions. So how are we looking there, Alanya, on our participation?
Yep.
Good.
People are rolling in.
All right. Well, I'm going to start us off, I think, because we have a full day. We have some amazing people here for our program, and I'm going to introduce myself, and then the way it's working today is we're all introducing each other. We have like a really dynamic group here, and so we're gonna introduce each other as we go. And I'm pulling up this slide here around, my name's Benjamin Fharer. I'm the program director of the Regenerative Organic Alliance. And this is a slide of Farmer Ben from the Bernstein Bears. And, brother Bear, he asked the question, is farming a hard task? Is it hard or fun? And Farmer Ben, he says, well, it is hard. We love it. And you might say it's hard fun. And I think that with the people presenting and the discussions we've had, it's really important to realize how hard farming actually is and the work that goes into it. And so a lot of respect to the farmers and where we are right now. It's important to understand that there's a whole, not only with Regenerative Organic Alliance and Certified, which is down here in the pillars, which Elizabeth Whitlow, who's our executive director, joining us today, will speak out. There's other implications and things that are used. There's different ethics and roles that inspiration people like Masanobu Fukuoka have inspired us, and everyone has different ways of being inspired to engage within this. There's field, there's production. My history is I am a farmer. I've been farming for about 25 years, growing food on kind of the small market garden scale, looking at how we need to grow food that we wish to eat in the world. And that has led to urban agriculture, where I've brought farming and regenerative agriculture into the urban sector and how we can apply some of that, looking at the idea of regenerative agriculture being not just an end to something, but actually a process, and that there is a reckoning of understanding, a returning to relationship. And a lot of what's happening today, I think, in the regenerative world is actually a restoration of the soil and the world that we've extracted so much from. And is regeneration the goal? I would say that it's a part of a process of a practice that we're all engaged in, but really we're looking at a more resilient system that we're trying to do. But the idea that we can do this in the urban scene. So I've been challenged with putting this into the civil imagination, looking at ecosystems and ecosystems and integrating it into structure into buildings, how the problems we face in the city can be addressed with some of this work. And there's different people doing this all around the country that provide a lot of inspiration. And the work I've done is integrating it into buildings on structure in the urban environment. So I won't, there's a lot more to share on that with my history, but that's not exactly what we're talking about today. It's just a background to how we need to address all of these issues that we're faced today. And today we're specifically working with Luke Peterson from A-Frame Farms, who's in the Midwest. We also have Angela Jackson. We have Elizabeth Whitlow. We have Christie Biddle. We have a whole list. I'm not going to introduce everyone right now, but just that we'll be going through this and sharing what it is that we're all doing to create this holistic system of ecological health within our regenerative food system that we're trying to integrate. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Elizabeth, and Elizabeth Whitlow, who's the executive director, who I've known for over 25 years now, almost, as she was my CCOF inspector up in Sonoma County when I first started farming back in the early 2000s. So Elizabeth is now the executive director, and she is the one who's created this this program that we're all working in. And thank you, Elizabeth, for joining. You're going to give us a quick history of ROA, some of the wins, and kind of what it all means, you know, as far as regenerative organic and being certified. So
love it. Thank you, Benja. It's so good to see you shepherding this program along and bringing it to life. It's really exciting to be able to test out this idea this year. And thank you and all the staff and everybody who's making this possible. Everyone who's here, we're glad you're here today to learn about the Regenerative Organic Learning Center program. And I'll give a quick 5-minute overview on the ROA and our program for those of you who aren't familiar with it. See a lot of familiar faces joining us here in the chat. A lot of our amazing staff are here, former staff. And so that's exciting to see everybody come in. I'm gonna start the slideshow real quick, and then I'll hand it back over to y'all. I believe next will be our wonderful certifier. So let's see. You should see a beautiful sheep, fuzzy face sheep, and our logo, Regenerative Organic Alliance. And this is our mission and vision. And just to give you a quick history of how the ROA was conceived, it came together inspired by 3 very iconic brands, organizations, Patagonia, Dr. Bronner's, and the Rodale Institute. Back in 2016, 2017, they started. These were iconic brands who had organic as their DNA, a deep part of their companies and their organization's mission. And they were a little concerned about what they saw as downward pressure on organic. And they wanted to come up with a new vision for the future of agriculture. They absolutely wanted to continue to uphold organic, make organic stronger, and then bring in more elements that were also really important. They felt like weren't being addressed in the organic program. And that is how they came up with this idea of this alliance. And they brought together experts from the field of soil health, from social justice, and from animal welfare, and came up with this idea for the certification program. They all did this. They gathered at the Rodale Institute up in Pennsylvania, where we really can attribute much of the organic origins here in the US coming from J.I. Rodale and his son, Robert Rodale. And the term, while the term regenerative agriculture was really first introduced by George Washington Carver, really it upholds what millennia of indigenous farmers have been doing and practicing in their approach to agriculture. And Bob Rodale is one who really popularized this term of regenerative plus organic. And this organization went further and created a certification program for it, which you'll start to see in a lot of places. It's called Regenerative Organic Certified. And you can see that logo down in the bottom corner. You can see it up behind my head in that wooden sign. And we want you to see it and recognize it and champion this certification, because it is really the most aspirational standard for agriculture that exists currently on the market. And these are the 3 pillars. You're going to learn a little bit more about each of these as we go throughout this day. But just to give you some of these highlights here, looking at soil health and just tying into these very commonly agreed upon practices in the regenerative movement around keeping the soil covered and minimizing the disturbance to the soil, bringing in more diversity, having a more proactive approach to your crop rotations, and bringing livestock back onto the farm. And of course, no GMOs, no hydroponics, no synthetic inputs. And so that is really the core of our soil health practices. There's other tenets in there I'd love to elaborate on, but I won't in the interest of time. The animal welfare pillars, again, there's like these 5 basic animal freedoms that are agreed upon in the animal welfare community that are listed here. We also do not allow confined animal feedlot operations, and we really are aiming for animals to be able to express their natural behavior. Therefore, a ruminant needs to live its life on pasture, on grass, because that's what a ruminant is designed to do. They've got 4 stomachs because they convert sunlight, goes into grass, and they convert it into meat and milk. And so really just looking at what a species wants, how a species wants to live, and having an environment that allows them to express those behaviors. And then on the far side here, the social fairness, this is around equity. It's around setting up safe working conditions. Workers here in America, over 60% of our agricultural labor, the people who pick our food, are undocumented individuals. And therefore, they are not given basic protections of the law. And they suffer at the hands of this in many ways. There are many problems in those working environments out on the farm. And so trying to ensure there's good, safe working conditions, striving towards living wages for workers, being transparent about what a living wage would be for a region. There's been a whole lot of education going on around that for all of us, as well as all the farmers we work with and the brands who support these farmers. So more to come and more details on these. We'll try and keep moving quickly through here so we can get to the rest of our awesome guests today. This is just a quick snapshot for you, created by our team, this beautiful graph that shows this tremendous growth since we did our pilot program in 2019. In 2020, we came out, reformulated our standard after taking in all that feedback. And, you know, we were in the middle of a global pandemic and a crisis of not being able to travel and visit farms and do these audits. So we really didn't get out on the ground until 2022 in earnest. And there you can see the graph shoot up. And we are now at 15 million acres. We also are at almost 2,000 products with Regenerative Organic Certified content on the market. We're seeing tremendous growth in the market and demand, and it's really exciting to be in this seat. And for that reason, we're growing our organization. We're doing some restructuring, and our new interim CEO is here with us today. Lorraine Pepper is here, and give a wave there, Lorraine, for people to see you and other team members. So maybe there'll be a chance to spotlight everybody later. And I think I'm going to just wrap it up here, Benjamin, but I'll leave with this one because this will lead up great for our wonderful friend from Where Food Comes From, one of our certifiers. The process that we use is that we are using the best practices as standard owner set up on ISO 1765, which means that we use NOP accredited third-party certifiers to do the work, to go out and visit our farmers, to make the certification decision that we then take and issue a certificate or a license to the brand. And we do this to prevent a conflict of interest and to ensure that there's really competent, trained auditors going out and seeing our farms. And we have a great team that trains these auditors and works with all of our certifiers to help ensure that the auditors understand our program and really bring this program to life when they go on the farm and meet our farmers. And that's it. Really excited that you're all here and seeing this program roll out. So thank you so much. Back to you, Ben, or on to you, Vinod, however you'd like to do it.
Yeah, if you would like to introduce Vinod, and then I can share his slides. That would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth, so much.
Yeah, I've had the great pleasure of getting to know Vinod a little bit over the last few years. Where Food Comes From is a really awesome partner to us, and he oversees the certification work they do and all the programs they administer. And he is coming to us today. Just where are you today, Vinod?
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. I'm actually Castle Rock, Colorado, visiting our main office this week. So
Always on
excited.
the
Yeah.
Great.
Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much, for the introduction and also for the great work you have done in developing, implementing, and growing the standard. And on a personal level, it's been such a great pleasure, working with ROA and ROC. As Elizabeth said, I oversee a number of programs at Where Food Comes From. We are a third-party organic certifier. And really, our role is, and the role of as our founders of the company speak about, is we really want to be at the forefront on being able to connect consumers with their food and where their food is grown and how it's grown. And one of the best ways for us to do that is really to start working with a lot of the farmers and clients and many ranchers that we work with for many different programs. And I have a small PowerPoint presentation. And before you move to the next slide, Ben, I just wanted to outline a couple of things, and I have a data slide at the end that I'd like to share. But one of those three pillars that Elizabeth had clearly outlined early on makes the ROC program extremely unique. In order to become ROC certified, Regenerative Organic Certified, you have to meet those baseline requirements of being organic certified. And then in addition to that, additional work and in terms of the soil health, and very similar to organic in some areas, but there is additional requirements and different tiers, leading up from bronze, silver, and gold. But the most important thing is what I wanted to outline is that this is a certification that takes it to the next level of where we are, in the industry. While there might be organic helps us and gets us to that level, but these two other practices on animal welfare, which is a very large part, and a lot of emphasis and a lot of requirements, to ensure that those animals are going through the different, processes that are needed to meet those animal welfare guidelines. And then thirdly, something that's also very critical and very important is the social aspect, right? I think from one of kind of the many definitions out there, regenerative organic is a holistic system, and we believe it can only really be holistic when we're looking at all, three major aspects: the soil, the earth level, the animals that are part of it, and then most importantly, the human beings that are the most important connectors with all of that. So that's where I feel like it's a very value add, and it makes it so different and unique from the organic perspective. I'm going to go in just a few slides. The first one is just, focusing on on the organic regenerative farming practices, which I think many of you know. The standard talks a lot about vegetative cover, crop rotation, and please note this is a very few examples that I just wanted to put some visuals together. Rotational grazing being a big one, to help with the carbon sequestration as well as helping with building that soil and building that organic matter. The next slide I wanted to share with you is just the certification process cycle. We work very closely with the Regenerative Organic Certification team, where we firstly receive a client usually applies through them and receive an application, and all the steps in kind of that bronze color is where all the different steps ROA is responsible for, and then all the green text is where Food Comes From is responsible for. And the summary is, we receive an application, a client applies with ROA, they choose their certification body, we receive that application, and then we go through the process with what's called a regenerative organic system plan. So very similar to that of organic, but there's additional add-ons in terms of more areas of soil health, where there's different types of soil tests that are part of that, and then anything if the client is applying for the social aspect and animal welfare aspect, that's included as well. Next slide. And so this here is just a quick summary of what I just said in terms of the different steps and the layers that are covered by the ROC, and then also by wherever it comes from. And we can just go to the next one. And so this is the pillars that Elizabeth has already focused on. And the only area that I'd like to add on this is, as there's different levels within the ROC Organic certification, there's certain benchmark standards that can be used. So for example, certified humane and global animal partnerships are certain aspects that could be used at different levels to kind of benchmark and show that, okay, I have met these animal welfare requirements. Or if it's fair trade, you could use that fair trade standard to kind of help benchmark additional ROC requirements on that. I think the next part that's always the most fun part is when the inspector actually goes on site, because that's where the real connection happens. We get a chance to see what the clients have told us. We get a chance to interact with the client. We interact with the animals. We interact with the land. So that really gives us, that's a very critical step in making sure that we can see that connection between what's happening and what's the client is describing. Okay, and you can go to the next step. This again talks a little bit in detail on kind of the different aspects on the additional benchmark standards that is already outlined in the ROC standard. What we just did was kind of go in and outline this, in these standards, in the requirements for ROC. And Ben, yeah, can you also, this is the slide that I kind of wanted to outline. So we work in different capacities with an organization called SPINS. And this kind of goes back to my first note at the beginning of the presentation, which is regenerative organic is very much a value add. There might be some areas where I've seen perhaps certain claims are saying that organic is regenerative, but as I outlined before, there's these two additional pillars that are highly emphasized in the regenerative organic space, which is the animal welfare aspect and the social aspect. And there's actually steps that a client needs to go through in order for us to go through and validate and ensure that they can receive that certification. I think most importantly, why I'm showing the slide is that at the end of the day, the consumers is what really affect what we do, whether we no matter what the industry is. If the consumer is saying and voting for, hey, I want to see Regenerative Organic Certified, that actually means something to the consumer. So my point being is that the horse is out of the barn in this one, because the audience, the consumers are already asking for, and they're looking for Regenerative Organic Certification. And what the slide really shows is that there's over the last couple of months, there's been an increase, and there continues to be an increase in the dollar-to-dollar sales in particularly regenerative organic products. So there's an increase in organic, but there's also an additional increase in regenerative organic, which basically means, and as I wrap this up, which basically means that the consumers out there, firstly, are willing to pay for that extra premium because they understand that it covers more than organic. And then thirdly, secondly, it shows that there's a lot of growth and continues to grow in the ROC space. So the most important takeaway is that the consumers are what we should be listening to when it comes to the different certification programs. And particularly what the consumers want is what we see in the data. And we can see that they're wanting more and more regenerative organic certified products on shelves. So with that, I will hand it over through to, I believe Angela is going to be our next speaker. Is that right? Sorry, I lost track.
Yeah, thank you, Anand.
Yes, that is right. Thank you so much for that. And Angela, I'll pull up your slides here too.
Yeah,
okay,
mine are full of a lot of pictures.
And I'll just mention that I worked with Angela some time ago, and we've also done some of their regenerative organic certification on a farm, Prairie Sun Organics, and it was always a great pleasure working with you, Angela. So
yeah, thank you, Vanan. Yeah, Trent is a great inspector. We're actually getting ready for our next inspection. Just got an email yesterday. So a little bit about us. We're a little bit different than some other regenerative organic certified farms in that we are a small scale suburban ag, highly diverse farm. We're about 6 minutes from the University of South Dakota in the extreme southeast corner of the state. We are also a Xerces pollinator protector site, and we are one of 2 Regenerative Organic Certified farms in the state of South Dakota, one on the west and one on the east. South Dakota in general doesn't have a lot of organic farms. We're one of the a handful of states that has probably close to less than 100 farms. So we have certified operations in our state, a lot of processors, but we don't have a lot of farms. We are a family operation. So we are a very close-knit family. We work together on the farm. It's my daughter, my granddaughter, my husband, Glenn, and myself. We also raise chickens on our farm. There's a picture of my granddaughter who loves horses, and we do a lot of things on the farm as a family. And that's one of the things I really love about being organic and doing it this way is that I really feel like the soil, we're taking care of the soil, we're taking care of our health, and it's really a lot about taking care of the family. And so for us, we do it, it's a family endeavor, and we do it in this way, not only for our health, but also my granddaughter wants to run the farm someday. So I've been training her. We'll see some pictures here of her actively working and doing things. She helps us. We use mobile hoop houses or mobile chicken tractors. You'll see there on our pastures, and I'll talk a little bit more about how we integrate that. But we definitely love the family aspect of this and doing it together. You want to advance the slide? Yeah. So everything we do on our farm is sold within 100 miles of our farm. So we process chickens on the farm for sale under the USDA NOP label, but our animals are not certified yet to the animal welfare pillar, but we use the animals as part of our soil nutrient building program and holistic farming practices. The poultry, the sheep, the cattle are all super important in maintaining our soil health. We're really proud that we bring very few off-farm inputs onto our farm. Like we don't need to buy fertilizers. We don't need to buy expensive organic plant protection products. We very rarely buy any inputs. A lot of everything we do is recycled on the farm. We buy organic seed, and we buy some animals offsite for replacements, but other than that, we don't buy a lot. We are Regenerative Organic Certified through where food comes from, like Vanad was saying. We implement the principles of Regenerative Organic Certified through practices that build number one for us is healthy human relationships, soil health. We enhance plant and pollinator biodiversity. We do a reduced or no-till recycling plant and animal matters and the nutrients that feed the microbiome of the soil. And we support the livelihood of our farm through small scale, but high value products that we produce. So we implement a highly diverse mix of perennial and annual crops. We're certified for various berries, including aronia berries, hay and forage, apples, peaches, mixed vegetables. I think, Ben, if you go to the next slide. Okay, so this is an example of our Regenerative Organic Certified aronia berry crop. We have students from the University of South Dakota come out and volunteer, and they help us with our aronia berry crops. So we put up a lot of pounds. We sell those direct to consumers, or they go into wine for making wine and various different products around the state. If I move to the next slide. So we also sell apples on our farm. These are Regenerative Organic Certified apples. So we sell those locally at farmers market. We don't have enough to go large scale, but we have enough to do some of the local stores and farmers markets. You want to go to the next slide, Ben? So here's some of our aronia berries. We also do, like I said, a variety of mixed vegetables, some cucumbers, and we do tomatoes, a lot of different things. Our products are largely sold in a local grocery store chain. So most of our products are wholesale, but we also do some direct to consumer. We also do grapes and grapevines. So we have a beautiful little vineyard on our place, and we are able to sell grapes also locally to those who are generating or creating, using them oftentimes with local wines is where most of them go. We do crop rotation and cover cropping on our farm. We use a lot of diverse practices. We have a 7-year crop rotation. We do things to prevent soil erosion, enhance water retention, and we use organic seed. We do a lot of, we soil test every year. The animals, I can't mention how important the animals are for us. We're rotating those through the fields as we're in between the seasons that we're cropping. We do a very intense mix between perennials and annuals. We also compost a lot of our nutrients as well. And yeah, so I think that if anybody, I'll just turn it over to the next person who is on the schedule, which Ben, I don't have a schedule in front of me.
Yeah,
so
no, it's good. You're gonna introduce Luke, and I just
all
wanted
right.
to add,
Okay.
Angela, I just wanted to add that there, if for folks that don't know your work and check you out some more of like the advocacy you've done for organics and the advocacy you've done for regenerative organic is quite substantial. And we're just all very grateful for the work that you've done. And you can see the diversity and the scale that you're working at is different than what I mean, there's still a lot of diversity, but a different scale that we're now going to go to Luke. And since you both know each other, Angela, you've been out to the farm quite a bit. It takes a little while to get out there, but you've been to a number of field days that Luke has hosted. So if you'd like to just hand it over and introduce him for a second, just maybe your personal experience of Luke as a farmer, and then Luke, I'll pull up some of your imagery here.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I've had the opportunity to visit Luke's farm a couple of times, and I'm always so impressed at how well Luke does with managing the diverse crops that he has and the soil health building or tilth building practices that you have, Luke, are amazing. Every time I go to Luke's farm, I learn something new as a farmer. I'm watching you, Luke. I'm picking up things all the time. I was like, yeah, I could do that better. So I'm going to turn over to Luke, and he can share a little bit about his practices and what he's doing.
Hey there. Thank you guys for having me on as a farmer. I'm Luke Peterson from Dawson, Minnesota. We operate a 1,200 acre grain and livestock farm. I think that's just the easiest way to kind of say it, but there's a lot that goes into that. I'll just start out with maybe where we started. As a family, I started farming conventionally. Prior to farming conventionally, I worked for the Department of Natural Resources, and my job was prairie restoration. So the state of Minnesota would buy a farm, and my job was to restore it back to its native habitat. So in doing that work, when I went into farming, it was really hard to ignore what I had learned working for the Department of Natural Resources. So after farming 2 years conventionally, I quickly transitioned to organic. And once I got involved with organics, I kind of started seeing some nuances from the conventional side that were also happening on the organic side. Organic was becoming industrialized. And I think because of demand, like the standards have become loosened a little bit. So it kind of makes sense, to keep up with demand. But as far as what I wanted to do, I wanted to keep moving in the direction of soil health as much as I could. And we started farming regeneratively the best we could. We started adding crops to the rotation as fast as we could. We started cover cropping in our row crops and our small grains. And we started introducing livestock. We started to reduce tillage. And it's taken us about 10 years to get to where we are now. It was kind of added a new thing each year. And when I started, I wanted to build a farm that would be something that my neighbors would possibly want to recreate. So it'd have to be at scale. It'd have to, maybe not include so much manual labor. So like building my own equipment to do some of these practices, things like that. But I guess where we're at now, we could maybe, there's so many different things to talk about, and we have 15 minutes.
Yeah, Luke, there's you and we first met at one of our other ROLC centers at the Ecology Center, and I followed you for a while, but you know, I pulled up this picture of cover crop or of soil, and then with the cover crop. And one of the things that I found extremely valuable in talking to you is just both your passion for the soil, right, and your passion for your commitment to the land that you're working in, but also the scale that you're working at. I mean, you have 1,200 acres, is that correct?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And the diversity that you're doing. So I think it would be really awesome to share with folks, you know, the scale and the diversity and some of the details that you're doing. I mean, you're building equipment, but you're also like integrating cover crop, which we hear a lot about in regenerative organic practices. But I don't think people realize the diversity that cover cropping for soil health really requires, and also some of like the CNN ratios and how you can get the soil microbiome to digest that cover crop, you know. So I just love the way that you've, you know, integrated that skill and that art in there. So, you know, I think that would be really helpful to hear. And also
yeah, we could talk about maybe one example, and I'll just kind of give you an idea of how in depth it is to implement the 5 principles of soil health, like at scale. So like if you back up to the one before the corn there, so this is a sunflower field, and we have a specific rotation. Right now, we grow up to like 14 different crops. We have perennials in the system like Kernza, we have alfalfa, and we have rotational graze pasture. And they're all in the rotation for a specific reason. We grow yellow corn, we grow blue corn. We're going to be growing white corn in the future. We grow soybeans for seed and for tofu. We grow winter wheat and we grow spring wheat, and they go to local mills and bakeries. We grow buckwheat, which goes to a really good buckwheat company that I've been working with for like 4 years now. Sunflowers goes to another terrific company that I've been working with for about 5 years. And we grow barley, and we grow oats, and we grow flax, and we grow grass-fed beef. And I'm probably missing a few, but to kind of hone in on one specific thing, like integrating cover crops into a system like this is really really kind of strategic, and you have to figure out what crop it is that we want to talk about. But we can pick this picture here as a really good example. So if you note the sunflowers, there you go.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yep. And here you can see, so like when you're growing sunflowers for food grade, you want a large seed. And in order to do that, you have to space your plants apart pretty widely. So you get a big seed, less of them, but they're bigger. And so you have a lot of bare soil to deal with. And this is not what you want to see, is a lot of black dirt. But prior to planting sunflowers, I wish I had more time, but I'm going to just not rush anything, and you guys stop me where you want. But
I think doing noodling on this for a second is awesome. And then just so folks know, like we'll be doing a much more extensive session with you for our virtual field tour of like where we can really nerd out on all this stuff. But this is great. This is great.
Okay. And I think integrating what's happening is you have to integrate these 5 principles of soil health onto your farms kind of all at the same time. So prior to sunflowers, we grow corn, and corn is a high residue crop. Normally, most of the time, corn is tilled under in the fall. But if we're going to reduce tillage, which is one of the principles of soil health, we have to leave that residue on top of the soil. So coming into this farm in the springtime, about 3 weeks before these plants that you're looking at right now were planted, we took a batwing mower and we went and we chopped all that residue. And our soil is alive enough, and we have a good carbon to nitrogen ratio where the organisms and the micronutrients in the soil are active enough to devour that nutrients. And you can see that how black that dirt is. So yes, it's black dirt, but there also was a full corn crop there prior to those sunflowers being planted. So after we we minimize or eliminate tillage in the fall, we minimize it in the spring, we chop our corn stalk residues, and then we come in with a field cultivator and prepare a seed bed. So we prepare a seed bed, and what we're doing is we're eliminating the first flush of weeds that come through. Then after we prepare a seed bed, we come in with a 12-row 30-inch planter, and we plant like these, what you're looking at here, which is sunflowers. And there's a lot of space between these sunflowers right now because they're so small. They'll get very big and cover everything eventually. But in the meantime, we want to keep that soil covered. So we built this 12-row 30-inch cover crop seeder, and those tubes go to each row, and we have a diverse mix in that planter, which is turnips, tillage radish, peas. I think there's some rapeseed in there, and maybe some buckwheat. So our last pass, the cultivation, so we're doing our weed management at the same time, but we're also going to incorporate our cover crop at the same time. And after I did this pass, planted my cover crop seed, we got a 1.5-inch rainfall, and every seed that I planted grew. And it was like and once those sunflowers got to be about 6-7 feet high, they had a beautiful understory of a really diverse cover crop underneath of them. And if you go down 2 more, that's a cover crop field, basically the same idea, but planted underneath cash crop of corn. So you can, normally that would just be black dirt and you'd have a monocrop growing like that. And at that stage is when I planted the cover crop, same as the sunflowers. But you can see once I harvest this crop, my cash crop, I leave that cover crop behind for the soil. So we take a crop and we leave a crop behind. But every crop is a little different. Every crop has a little different mix that goes underneath of it. Wheat is a whole nother story. But yeah, and if you go, let's see, keep going there. Maybe go back up.
I don't have all the things in here, I think.
There you go, that butterfly one in the wheat.
Oh, yeah.
On the very top. So as you can see that green coming through that wheat crop right there with that clover flower underneath of it, that is my cash crop on top, the wheat. I'll harvest that wheat, but then underneath is this green lush clover that's a legume that's going to provide the nitrogen for the crop the next year. So there's a lot of different places we can go with cover crops, but it's just one small example of what regenerative organic is. And we could talk for days.
For days. Luke, how many people work on your farm?
It's just me and my wife and my 2 boys. I had a good intern last year, but most of the time it's me and my boys, and my wife holds up the other end at home. So
okay, so for people that are listening, go back to that slide about, are you having fun? Are you having fun?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
now
hard fun, right? It's hard fun. 1,200 acres, you and your family, you just crushing it out there. I just put that in perspective about the work that goes into something like this, the amount of time you put into it, and just really want to honor the commitment you have to that, because the more you do, the more you have to do. You don't have to be integrating these cover crops and doing all of this. I mean, that's complex planting, coming in at the right time with the right soil, with the right wind, I mean the rain and everything. And so just really acknowledge the nuances that you're having to also think about while doing all this work, right? So it's an art, it's a science, it's hard work. And thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to us having more discussion and people coming out to your farm when they can.
Yeah, and we'll put together, hopefully we can put together a good slide where we can talk about each specific soil health practice.
Let's do it. Let's create some YouTube magic on that. If you want to,
Benjamin, I just got to say something. Like I keep saying,
absolutely.
Luke is be America's most popular farmer, most beloved farmer, and our tagline is "Farm like the world depends on it," which we always like to say. But I also am convinced the next one is going to be regenerative organic farmers have more fun. And it's affirmed every time I see you all, like, and hear like the discovery and the exploring and the creativity that you bring out there. So thank you, Luke. Thanks for being here.
That's right. That's right. Well, Luke, we're going to move on to Christie Biddle, who's with Patagonia, who you've worked with, and is going to share with us some of what Patagonia Provisions does, her experience there, and then also do a little, someone who's procuring this product, how you can utilize ROA's website in order to do some of that work, that some of these tools that are there. So I'm going to hand it on over to you, and we're going to share I think you have access to also to share. I can pull up your slides, but if you also want to pull them up, I'm sure you have them there. If that might be even easier, right, for you to do that.
If you want to go through the slides, Ben, that'd be awesome.
Okay, I'll do that.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Do you want to say anything more about your work first as I pull these up?
Yeah, definitely. So hi, everyone. It's really fun to be here. My name's Christie Biddle, and I am in the operations department at Patagonia Provisions. I am the operations lead for our pasta and beer products. So what that entails is finding the suppliers for the ingredients that we're going to put into our products. So oftentimes, and in particular with a lot of our ROC ingredients, that means going down to the farm level and finding the farmers that are growing the crops we're looking for that we can partner with. And then also creating relationships and working with processors who take that raw material from the farms and process it into the ingredients we use. And then in addition to that, working with co-packers, so food and beverage manufacturers that actually make the products we sell. Awesome. And next slide, please, Ben. Great. So maybe just to zoom out real quickly for anyone that isn't familiar with Patagonia Provisions, we are a division of Patagonia, the apparel company. And I think a lot of people, when they first hear that Patagonia is making food, are like, wait a minute, what's the connection here? Why is a clothing company getting into the food business? And I think the reason is summed up really well in this quote from our founder, Yvon Chouinard. He says, people need a new jacket every 5 or 10 years, but they eat 3 times a day. If we really want to protect our planet, it starts with food. So Patagonia has really been a 50-year experiment of using business as a force for good. And we are taking the company ethos and applying that to food. And we believe that Patagonia Provisions, the food division, is the most important lever that the company can pull to have a positive impact on the environment. And the key way that we're doing that is through sourcing regenerative organic certified ingredients. Awesome. Yeah, next slide, please. Great. And so I've been in a sourcing role here at Patagonia Provisions for a little over 5 years. And prior to ROC existing, we were having conversations with the farmers we were sourcing from and really asking about a lot of the principles and practices that are now represented in ROC. So asking the farmers that we work with how many crops are in their rotation. Are they working to reduce tillage on their farm? If so, what does that look like and how's it going? And then also asking questions around if they're integrating livestock, animal welfare, and social fairness. So it's awesome now that ROC exists that we can find ROC farmers and know that they are really aligned with our values and the type of farming that we as a company are looking to support. Next slide, please. Great. Cool. So I'll talk real quickly here about some of the different products that we make that use ROC ingredients. I'm biased towards this first one. It's my favorite, and it's our 100% Regenerative Organic Certified pasta. We've got 3 shapes, fusilli, penne, and shells. And we have 4 different farms that we source from who are all Regenerative Organic Certified for this product. So Luke, we get our ROC Kernza from him, and there's another farmer, Jody Manuel, in Montana, who we get Regenerative Organic Certified Kernza from also for this product. And we use ROC Durham from Upland Organics in Saskatchewan, Canada. And starting in the next couple months, we're going to start sourcing ROC Durham from Tiber Ridge Organics in Montana as well. So 4 really awesome farm partners behind this product. And we simply couldn't do what we do without them. I also really want to highlight the critical role of processors in bringing this product to life. So when I wrap up, I'll be handing it over to Chris Wiegert of Healthy Food Ingredients, and his role in this supply chain and bringing our ROC products to life is critical. And I think, just like Luke was describing, being a regenerative organic farmer is not business as usual. It's thinking outside the box. It's doing things differently. And that really applies and is true throughout the entire supply chain. I know for processors and our work with Healthy Food Ingredients, there's a lot of extra communication, coordination that goes into them segregating ROC ingredients, milling those grains into flour for us, and making this happen. So processors are a really important part of the supply chain. Great. And then we have some crackers, 4 different flavors of savory crackers that are just starting to be produced using Regenerative Organic Certified wheat from the Skagit Valley of Washington. We've got 2 farm partners up there, Headland Family Farms and Anderson Organics, who we source the wheat from. And again, a really value-aligned milling partner, Karen Springs, who mills their wheat into flour for these products and is also super essential. And then last but definitely not least, we just launched 2 beers with Deschutes Brewery up in Bend, Oregon. We've got a Kernza lager that uses organic Kernza and as well as ROC rye, and then a non-alcoholic Kernza brew. So beers are really important and fun way for us at Patagonia Provisions to introduce new folks to ROC and our vision for agriculture and supporting a better world. So these products are just getting into the market. We're really excited about them. So go get some. I'll drop a link to how to find the beer in the chat. But next, I will just really quickly do a demo of how I have used the ROA's Farm and Ranch Directory to find some of the farmers that we work with.
And I think as you're pulling that up, I just want to, again, give a shout out to the holistic nature of what we're trying to encapsulate within this, because as we talk about the nuances of cover cropping and the different ways this is applied, the producers, the procurement, the production of where this all goes and how that is, it should be recognized that, some of this is all new and some of it's old, in the sense that these are products that we all use, but the way, which I found, which you're about to go through, is like at a certain point, the company has an ethos that they're trying to achieve. And at a certain point, they need to go all in. You can have a couple of products, and as a consumer, it's good to look at the products and the brands, because they might have a line, one thing that's regenerative organic, but then they're using conventional and all this other stuff. And at one point, Patagonia, thank you, basically was like, let's go all in, let's do this. And I think you were tasked with then sourcing that, the actual ingredients. And you were like, okay, I got to do this pretty fast. And so then you did turn to ROA as a resource. And I think that's what you're going to share now, as a way that you, as someone procuring these, these products from farmers, because a lot of farmers, they go, okay, yeah, if I grow regenerative organic, who's going to buy it? Where's it going to go? And do I have a market? And the answer is yes, there is a market, as we've seen. But then there's also tools in Regenerative Organic Alliance. We're trying to create an alliance of farmers to work on this, to build it together. So go ahead and why don't you share your screen and show us what you got there. And then we'll go to our last presenter, Chris, that you can introduce him, and then we'll go into a Q&A with folks.
Sounds great. Awesome. Can you see that all right?
Yes, it looks great.
Okay, great. Cool. So yeah, like Ben was saying, when we decided to make our pasta 100% Regenerative Organic Certified, we knew we could get the ROC Kernza from Luke, but I needed to find Durham wheat. So the first thing that I did was come on to the ROA's website, and I went to find ROC and selected the Certified Farm and Ranch directory. And then use this search and filter function to then choose wheat as a crop and see all of the folks that popped up. And I remember, you know, almost 2 years ago when I first looked, there were maybe like 10 or 12 farms. And when I came on here the other day, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many more, which is so awesome. Yeah, but I called each of them up and asked what varieties they plant and found Upland Organics. And it's a great resource. So if you're a farm, make sure you're on it. If you're a brand, it's a great way to get started. And I'll leave it at that for now.
Can you also show the community, the other site where people can post?
Yeah, definitely. So let's see, share screen.
As you pull that up, there is, if for those that are tuning in, you know, poking around on the web, looking at the different resources and hitting the different things. There's a lot of information up here.
Let's see.
There's a map as well, you know, and finding ROC stuff. So this is great.
Awesome. Cool. And we've definitely used this as well. So the community announcements board, which you can find right at the top of the ROA's homepage, is also another way to share crops that you have available that are ROC and need a buyer for. Or if you're looking for something, you can also list that here. So there's crops, ingredients for sale, crops and ingredients wanted, and services. So yeah, thanks ROA for creating these resources for us. They are super helpful.
For sharing those. We do that for free too for any of our clients. Our certified farms or our licensed brands can post for free, and outside parties can post for $50.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thanks for
Great.
sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I'll pass it over to Chris Wiegert now of Healthy Food Ingredients, who, as I mentioned, mills both the Durham and Kernza for our pasta products and has been an awesome supporter of our special regenerative products over the years. So Chris, take it away.
Thanks, Christy. Hello, everyone. I'll make this short and sweet. First off, if you're on this call, congratulations, because we all kind of make this look easy when we're on the call, but sometimes it's not always so easy. So big shout out to Luke and Angela, and especially the farm partners that are on the phone. You know, it's one thing to be a processor. It's another thing to be executing this on acres. So big shout out to everybody in that chain. So we're processors, and what I mean by processors, we're grain processors located primarily in the upper Midwest that focus on food and pet food ingredients that are really what we like to call, you know, we're going to specialize in custom supply chains. So in essence, if you're looking for a certain quality spec, a certain, you know, attribute spec, whether it's a certification spec with like what this is with rock, sustainability goals, marketing goals, that's the space that we really thrive in. We've got 4 facilities, one of those in Nebraska, Hastings, Nebraska, one of those in Watertown, South Dakota, one in Moorhead, Minnesota, and one in Valley City, North Dakota. for those of you familiar with the food industry, those facilities are all separated by allergens. So we have 2 of those facilities that are allergen free for those products that qualify for that. And when I say allergen free, it's out of the big 8 or 9. Depending on where you're at, you can still be allergic to something else, but the big 8 or 9 that the USDA recognizes, as well as then really focusing on those crops then that are either containing gluten or not containing gluten or soy, basically, is how we're set up. So I guess there's no questions right now. So we did talk about, we live in SKUs that are 100 million pounds, and we live in SKUs that are 20,000 pounds. The difficulty for an IP processor, which is really us, identity preserved processor, is the cleanouts. And that is really the cost driver behind what we do, based on, we can't, obviously there isn't yet enough organic or rock products there to keep us busy. Everything we do is non-GMO or organic or rock. But that is really the differentiator when you start talking about an identity preserved project like Christie is doing or like Luke does, is in regards to making sure that customer is getting 100% of the product they believe they're getting.
And you said clean out, right? When you're talking about cleaning out the equipment.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of people don't realize that some of these big processing plants and whatnot, they have to, like you said, there's not enough to do just one thing. You have to switch, right? Switch batches
Correct.
and stuff. So there's a process in doing that. And so we need more of,
and obviously that is a fixed cost. That isn't a cost that really moves based on product. A clean out is a clean out, at least for us. So that's where your volumes and those other things become part of the discussion. So,
Great.
But that's it. That's a nutshell. That's what we do. I don't want to take up more time. If there's other questions, Christie, Luke, Angela, all of them are more important than we are, but thanks for giving me the time.
That's great, Chris. I would say, Elizabeth, you know all these people really well. I think we are going to do a quick roundtable discussion and then open it up for questions. But is there anything that you saw that was pointed out that you think would be good for folks to know and want to start the discussion about?
Gosh, I mean, I think you play a really important role, and that's kind of it's a juggernaut in general for farmers in getting their crops to market. So it's actually really important that you're here and that we think about those challenges with farmers, and even with smaller loads, that when you do a clean out, that how much of that load may be lost and the cost of that. So finding more processors around the country to help get these crops to market is key. And I see Christie nodding her head vigorously. She knows this pain. Christie, do you want to kick it off and talk a little bit about some of your challenges and learnings on that?
Yeah, I'll just say, I think, we have had the processor part of the supply chain definitely be a roadblock in the past with different ingredients that we've wanted to use, but not quite hitting minimum order quantities for milling or things like that. So finding the right folks like Chris and HFI that really focus on identity preserved and are willing to take on these more small to medium sized projects is super critical. And, to be honest, it's a little bit of a needle in the haystack. Like, there aren't that many folks out there that are willing to step up and, do that part of this work. So, yeah.
One thing I think that's a real hot topic too right now, which I think everyone here can address or have a discussion about, and Vinod, who he had to leave just now because he's on his way on the airport, but he and I got into a discussion yesterday, and I think we've all had this discussion to a certain point, and he alluded to it about regenerative being organic and organic being regenerative and regenerative organic. And in the supply chain, when we're looking at holding that quality and the ethics around that, and the reason why we have ROC, the importance of those being linked so that there's a clear picture of the practices which are regenerative that Luke spoke to a lot about, this process of soil building, soil health, animal welfare, this regenerative practice. And then there's the organic inputs, right? And so we often have industrial organic that's out there, that's not regenerative. But often people, I think Vinod mentioned, like, there's the baseline of organics, and then regenerative builds on that. And yet there's also this whole other group of people doing regenerative that not necessarily are organic. And I think it's confusing for folks. And I'm hoping that some people here, if you have opinions about that and the reason why it's important that we're linking those two. There's a lot of discussion all over the world happening right now. Like a lot of people assume that organic is regenerative. They're like, oh, it's organic, but then they go, oh, actually, it's not. And then a lot of people assume that organic is regenerative practices when it's just this whole cluster of the definition. Elizabeth, you've been on a whole discussion group of having to define regenerative. I think everyone and even the participants have been involved in this discussion, but I think it's a really valuable thing from a farmer's perspective, but also from a procurement and also from a consumer. So I'm kind of putting that out there if folks on the group want to add. And I do want to also acknowledge Alanya and Haley, who are part of the ROA, Haley being the face behind the communications that happens, and then Alanya being the face behind a lot of the operations. So giving you guys a lot of acknowledgement, and you both are very versed in some of these behind the scenes discussions. So I invite you to also chime in as it feels appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, I think one comment you made, Benjamin, is a lot of people assume organic is regenerative, and then they also assume regenerative is organic. And that's where it's not necessarily true, and where we're really trying to educate people on why we think it's really important that organic is the baseline, and that they aren't using synthetic pesticides and chemicals and GMOs and claiming regenerative, but also recognizing there's a trajectory and a road that a farmer needs to get on to get to that point. There's a transition period. Our friends at Mad Ag who work in the Midwest and who help work with Luke a lot, actually, we were going to have them on this session with us. They do tremendous work, really pivotal work in the Midwest, and that they call it the Valley of Death, and that transition trough as the farmers transition. But that might be a good conversation.
Yeah, why would they call it the Valley of Death?
Because the farmers are having declining yields and aren't getting the price premiums to offset those yields as they transition, as their soil gets recovered, they bring the soil back into balance, health. They aren't able to use any synthetic inputs.
Right. So they have this transition period, just like a conventional farmer would go to organic, and we see transitional, exactly. Right? There's a transition to regenerative. And Luke, were you ever a conventional farmer?
There we go. Yes, I started out farming conventionally for the first year. The first winter, I went into selling GMO seeds and chemical and fertilizer for the local co-op. And then after I did that, I went into organic about as fast as I could because I learned way too much, way too fast. But yeah, that Valley of Death is a good description. Went through it.
How was that for you? And what was, how was that transition for you to give insight for other farmers who might be listening to this going, yeah, okay, now I know. What do I do? How do I do?
Yeah. When I went from conventional to organic, I went all in. I would not suggest doing that. I would start with, depending on how big your farm is, 20% of your farm is just a rough number. Start really small, like one practice at a time. Do not jump in with both feet. Lots of things change, and things change really fast. Same is true for organic to regenerative. I could grow a corn and soybean rotation with full tillage organically. That is very, very different than what I do with regenerative. So
what is the main difference there? What is the main difference between, because I think that's a lot of people that gets to that nugget of that. It's like, yeah, I can do it organically and it's this, but it's way different if I do it regeneratively. What's the main difference?
Yeah. Well, the main difference is that every one of these soil health practices have different nuances and different responsibilities that go along with them. Like you can take rotations as an example. There's Regenerified, I think, is a new label that's out there, and they're calling a corn and soybean rotation a rotation. My rotation is 15 years long or longer. I might be able to go through my rotation.
Wait. 15 years? You have a 15-year rotation?
I might be able to go through my rotation 3 or 4 times before I die. So it's very different. Wow. Very, very different from the Regenerified label that's out there. Another one is cover crops. I can hire an airplane to spread cover crops over my cornfield, and whether or not it grows or not, depending on like how well you manage your time and like the timing of the seeding and north, like it may succeed and it may not. Just because you spread the seeds does not mean that that cover crop did anybody any good. So like with livestock is another good example. You know, we keep as many livestock as we can handle and do a good job so they're comfortable and happy, and they have, you know, the space and the food that they need to do well. Like you can just take everything to extremes in agriculture. There's two different extremes. I may be a little too far on the one extreme. There's no question about it. I'm learning that. But that's okay. I think it just kind of pushes, you know, the envelope for, or pushes this idea forward. Anyway, but all of these things, rotations, cover crops, livestock, plant diversity, reducing tillage, every single one of them takes time and money. And, you know, the more intense you are with these practices, the more time and money you need to do them. But I don't know if that answers your question. I kind of got off track.
It definitely does. And I think like to hear also from Chris and Christie around how that transition, is there a valley of death on the processor's point, like transitioning, or is it something that is what that nuance is? And also then Angela, you're working at a different scale, right, of what Luke just shared, and what that transition was like for you, and how you doing something is different. So maybe first we could hear from Chris and Christie around that, and then Angela, if you'd like to share maybe your scale, and then we can open it up for more questions. So
go ahead, Chris.
Christie. Either one. Why don't you go, Chris? You're unmuted.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, you know, our experience would more come from working with brands. I don't know that there's a death valley with processors. There sure could be, with the, you know, with the standards and making sure that you have the personnel necessary for the paperwork and process tracking and those sort of things. So there's, like Luke said, there's definitely additional costs for every certification you put into your facilities. But I think more than that, it's a supply assurance question. The more, you know, the more sophisticated of a supply chain you get into, which is where we see the death valleys happen more often, where it's not real easy to do what a Luke does and be making food grade every year. So to book with farmers and just know you're going to have that product is going to be difficult. So to me, the death valley is more on that supply assurance conversation than it is necessarily on a processor conversation, but that might just be me. I think there's death valley for processors to get started. I think everybody thinks processors make a ton of money, and we lose more processors every year than we're gaining. We're kind of consolidating there as well. When you really look across the United States of America, there's less than there ever has been. But I think really it becomes about supply assurance.
And Christie, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. I think, you know, from the financial side, maybe kind of a parallel in our world, you know, we do take, in some cases, many cases, we have a little bit of a lower margin on our Regenerative Organic Certified products. You know, we're purchasing ROC raw material for more than we would organically. And then, you know, when you have a bespoke supply chain that's at small scale and doesn't have those economies of scale, flour and our ingredients, you know, they are more expensive. So, you know, as we move from making organic products to ROC products, it might be lower margin. We're committed to it. We are going for it. And we think that ultimately Regenerative Organic Certified is going to be a really compelling proposition to the customers. So we'll see strong sales, but margins can be leaner for sure. And I think, like Chris said, supply assurance is a big concern for us when we're contracting with one or maybe two ROC farmers for an ingredient for a product, there's definitely some inherent risk there. So that's always a concern. Yeah. Until, you know, we get to a bigger point where we've got more farmers in the network. And if one is a crop failure, you know, we're not going to be caught in a tough place. So
yeah, I think it's Angela, I want to hear from you, and Elizabeth, looks like you have something to say, but there's a couple comments in here too. I think it's important that people know that ROC is also worldwide. I think you mentioned there's over 15 million acres, and there's farms all over the world that are doing this, and transitions in other countries. Valerie made a comment here that, you know, farmers that went conventional to organic still lost the farm, even with help from the government. And there's like real challenges that happen in Latin America, other parts of the world. And so there's a lot of hurdles in this transition to overcome. And I think we don't want to put all that cost onto the consumer, with the product just becoming obsolete to those who actually also would really benefit from having access to this food. So not just to make more great products for those that are wealthy or have more resources, but how can we leverage different funding, whether it's through climate dollars, whether it's through health dollars or whatever, and get more people. Angela, you've spoken a lot about advocacy and education in your own home state, and how to get different people on board with this idea, and seeing how it can be a climate resiliency practice. And there's a lot of resources going towards that. So putting that into perspective, I'm going to open it back up, Angela or Elizabeth, anyone else that wants to add to that idea of the transition. And then if anyone has other questions, please put them in the comments.
I'll just make a quick comment, then I'd love to have Angela be able to address that idea around the valley of death, or the transition, the challenges during the transition time. But you know, what we see are a lot of brands who are signing long-term contracts with the farmers to help ensure that they have this idea, like there's going to be a buyer at the end, and that the brands, it's kind of like the CSA model, where if you are familiar with community supported agriculture and you buy a box of produce every week from a farm, and you pay them in the early spring to give them financial stability throughout the year, and then you take whatever is abundant and you take the harvest. And so brands, like kind of applying that thinking and letting brands support farmers. And we have a lot of our ROA brands doing just that in Latin America and Australia and other parts of the world. And I love that idea, that the brands take a risk with the farmers. Then to you, Angela.
Yeah, I would just add, you know, I come from a fifth generation. I'm a fifth generation farmer. My family's farmed all the way back since they came from Germany in the 1900s. So for our transition though on our farm, we started out organic on our land, although my father and his grandfather farmed conventionally in Southwest Minnesota for many, many years. Our transition was from organic to regenerative. And I'll just mention quickly that when we were farming organically, we did too much soil disturbance and we almost destroyed our soils. I immediately went back to the drawing board after we started getting our soil analysis back, and asking everybody, like, what is going on with our soil? What is happening on this? I was just shocked, and I immediately said, okay, we got to change the way we're farming. This is not working for us. I can't live with what we're doing to the soil. And so we went regenerative, and it has tremendously changed our soil health, the biodiversity on our farm. It's the health of the food, the yields, the quality. It's so much better than it was when we were doing it organically, the way we were doing it. So I will never go back. We bought a no-till drill. We're going forward. We're never going back. And I think once you start that, it's like Luke. Once you start it, you're just like, whoa, this is so much better.
Right. So you would say that there's that transition that's difficult. But if you have the support, resources, and maybe some extra motivation, inspiration, once you get past that threshold, then you can start seeing those benefits come back.
It took us 3 years to get our soil tilth back after we just stopped and we went regenerative, and we're just now seeing the true fruits of what we're doing 3 years later.
Amazing. We have a couple, thank you. We have a couple of questions. Christie, this one's for you. How can we collectively as healthcare providers, educators, etc., help market these amazing products? So people that are in the healthcare education site, like how can they help market some of these products that are out there, regenerative organic?
That's a great question. I'm happy to connect afterwards with anyone who's interested in marketing some of our ROC products with our brand and marketing team and see what we can do.
Okay.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I'll connect you to the right folks on this side that will have some answers.
Yeah, I know there's some other people in here that made some comments, and have ideas of like when you go to festivals or go to events and stuff, if as an advocate, is there ways to, get support from like say Patagonia with product to represent, like we're all part of this movement. Hey, check out this product, how can we do this? So I think maybe people could reach out to you. You could drop your contact and I think you're on different platforms. So drop your contact in the chat. Luke, nice job. Were you able to reduce fertilizer inputs with your cover cropping system as you improve soil health and nutrient cycling?
Yes, reduced fertilizer is one of the pillars of ROC certified. So how much nitrogen you can put down on your land. Nitrogen and water is where you get yield, and yield is where you get your money from. So one thing, we did reduce it, but we replaced it with natural fertilizers like cow manure, legumes, cover crops, getting the microbes working again. Though that fertility plan though does not produce what a semi-load of synthetic nitrogen will do. They're not the same. I think that's really important to understand. And whereas we can call the cooperative, we can't, but farmers can call the cooperative, have 160 acres of fertilizer spread in maybe about an hour and a half, 2 hours. We are rotational grazing livestock on that farm for the entire summer. So the differences are something to educate yourself on. That's a really good question. But we did eliminate off-farm fertility, not completely. Like if we still grow a corn crop, it's still the right thing to do to bring in some outside nutrients. But for the most part, we are meeting the levels that ROC allows us to apply.
And that's a great comment around, convenience. We are a culture of convenience, whether it's in the market store as farmers and different things. It's like, oh, if I can spread that in an hour and get this thing, and if I have people buying it, and it's like, why would I transition? But the real thing is there's a much deeper impact and environmental service that happens when you're doing it in this other fashion, and the water that runs into the farm and into the water table has a very different quality. There's a holistic nature to the way you're tending the farm when you're doing that. This was one question here is, I've seen the USDA certified organic food sector go from 8 billion to 64 billion in sales during my career of 25 years. Imagine where ROC will be in 25 years. That's Andy making that comment.
And let's let Andy speak for a moment, Benjamin. He's one of our brands who's doing amazing work with vanilla. Andy, great to see you here.
Thank you for being here, Andy. Go for it.
Oh, Ben, you're mute.
I think it might be muted, or Alanya might have to unmute you.
We have to unmute you.
Try it again. Hit unmute one more time. Oh no, it's on the microphone. Getting some tech support. All right.
On the way. I think it's
I'll you keep talking, Andy, see if you can come in. And Daniel might say something here. There's
get Daniel on it.
Well, Daniel, there's a one that says about because you're in South America, is that correct, Daniel?
No, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was just waiting for Andy to get in, but yeah, loving to hear all the stories, all the the testimonials and initiatives around the United States. But yeah.
There's a question here about how is ROC working in South America? I'm looking for direction in bringing regenerative practices to Brazilian farms. There are already a handful of farmers here that are certified, but who does that certification process? Would it be someone from the US, or are there certifiers here?
Yeah, an excellent question. And, I'm actually talking from Brazil. So we have a couple of CBs offering the ROC, the Regenerative Organic Certified program over here. And, we have approved certification bodies across all over the world. We have a very good global reach so far as places like Brazil, Australia, Samoa, all over Europe, Africa, Asia. So yeah, you could reach out to our approved CB. I can share the list here at the chat for everybody so everybody can see, all the CBs where they are working. And we do have some very interesting projects here in Brazil and South America in general. And yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm going to share my contacts to you, Christopher. I'm reading here that you are in Brazil right now. So yeah, let's try to connect so I can understand how I can support you better. And we would love to have more and more operations certified here in Brazil and South America. We have a huge, potential. A lot of excellent farmers already supplying to the United States NLP and fair trade certified products. So yeah, we have a lot to achieve. And I'm going to share my contact information here and the link I promised. And we'd love to talk to you and anyone else who is interested in ROC, South America, and Brazil in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Andy, were you able to get your mic working?
I hope so. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes,
Oh,
we got you.
I'm so glad. I got a new computer. You know how that goes.
Good.
I just wanted to just give a big shout out. I mean, I learned so much from Luke today and from everyone here. It's really helpful. We're not farmers. We're really manufacturing and processors in the ingredient space. And I just always learn a lot when I hear others speak like this. I think it's a great forum. I just want to put a big shout out to ROA for listing all the crops and all the access to farms that Christie was scrolling through. Again, 25 years ago when the Organic Trade Association was rocking, that was the hottest ticket in town to go find your ingredients. And many firms advertised, and this might be an opportunity for ROA, on that space because that's where you went for ingredients. Okay, so it's a huge opportunity, and as that blossoms, I really see the ease. Again, I mentioned that 8 billion to 64 billion because we went through all these same struggles before 25 years ago. It's really hard to find things, but I always encourage everyone. We made it through all these speed bumps we're doing right now very well, and now organics is really in a lot of capacities it's surplus. And Benjamin spoke to industrial organic and things like this, but the reality is that during that race to the bottom with organic food ingredients, we've met it. Obviously we're on a very different trajectory right now with rock, which is so fun and so creative. We are really at our creative best right now as Vanilla Bean Project, sourcing beans from around the world in some of the worst areas in the world to transform lives on that social fairness aspect. It's powerful. And so that's why I just want to shed light on really the globalness of what we're doing here. I mean, we're way out there on the wing. I mean, this is like kind of crazy, some of the stuff we're doing, but you're not alone because everybody on this call is doing their own thing out on the wing. And I think just collectively, when we know that we're all out there, but if we keep the our foot on the gas pedal, we'll get to where this market can be very successful for everyone. And all of the work that's being done here, everybody's looking to this to say, well, people are doing this. There's safety in numbers. We can get into this too. And together, obviously, we can really change the world because more and more people will come into this space with the same ideas and create more ingredients, create more products that will change the world. I mean, this is it. This next 25 years is very exciting for me.
Very exciting, Andy. Thank you for adding that. And it's a great segue to mention this. The whole reason we're on this webinar is for this Regenerative Organic Learning Center program that ROA is piloting right now to basically create these hubs, first with 5, but then hopefully more, to provide a space where that alliance, that connectivity can happen, those resources can be shared. Like you said, we're at the apex of this incredible moment of creativity and imagination on how to transform, how to appropriate different dollars into the different hands, get the farmers on it. And there's a demand. There's people really want the world to farm in a way that is beneficial and regenerative to the planet, people, and future. There's so many people on this call. I really encourage any other words to be shared in the chat. We're going to, this has all been recorded. We're going to put it up probably in the next week so you can share it, and there'll be little snippets out of it. Luke's farm is out there. You know, you're doing such amazing work, Luke, and we're hoping to have an actual field day in person at your farm next year. And in the time right now, we're going to be doing a virtual field tour. We're going to put together some visual and media content. So look out for that. We'll post links there on the YouTube channel for ROA and whatnot. And Alanya, you want to make a comment?
I do. There's a comment here earlier from Maurice in Canada about how to get farmers to pony up to cover their cost of certification when they might be struggling economically. So I thought that'd be a good question.
Yeah,
I want to acknowledge it's 1:30, so the
it is.
And I just copied Maurice's message, and I was planning to email, or we can send out with responses, because there's a couple other pressing questions that need to be addressed.
Great questions. If anyone wants to add some more in there, we'll record those, and then when we do the recording, maybe publish that, and we'll add some more content in there as far as answers or resources.
Yeah, and I just want to thank everybody so much. This was awesome. Really great job. Thank you to all our guest speakers and the farmers and everybody, and all of you who came, and all our staff who came to join this this webinar as well, and Benjamin for your amazing coordination. So
you're so welcome. We're gonna unmute everyone so you can all say something and say goodbye, and any words you want to say together in a cacophony of supportive sound.
All right, on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, you can take your video off, show yourself, say hi. Great to see your faces. Yes. Nice. We'll catch you out there.